I would like to call the Parma Heights City Council work session to order on Monday, May 24th, 2021 at 6:31 p.m. Present are all of council, with the exception of Councilmember Walsh, Chief Scharschmidt, Mayor Byrne, Assistant Law Director Schneider, and our clerk, Mrs. Lear. So, I'm sorry, Neil. So, our first item on the agenda is the nuisance ordinance that we discussed prior. So I am going to open the floor to council for discussion. In the meantime, there was some information that was sent over to all of us. So does anyone want to start discussion on this ordinance? Perhaps someone from the administration. Mayor, did you have anything
No, we're
to
ready
speak
for any
about?
questions.
Okay.
We're prepared.
Okay, Councilman Stivoli.
I just had one question, Chief, on the amount of complaints on the last meeting. You were saying something about it's almost 100 complaints from this one area. Is that an accurate number?
It is, it's accurate.
Okay.
That's the calls for service that we've had to this particular location. So, again, I can't stress enough, this would be something that's egregious in nature. It's something we're spinning our wheels with criminal charges, and then we have this in place to assist us.
And can I follow up? Do you have any idea how many man-hours that we put into those complaints? And if you don't have an exact number, I'm just looking like if you have a basic idea of what that would have cost us in man-hours.
Well, each call takes quite a bit of time, and plus there's generally an investigative part with our detective bureau, so I'm going to say hundreds is pretty accurate.
Okay.
I've been a part of several where the nuisance abatement would apply, and it's been hundreds of man-hours.
Thank you very much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that.
Councilwoman?
Chief, I just wanted to be clear on the 12-month period. So if it's 2 calls, it's up to your discretion then, if you go forward with citing or whatever the procedure is?
That's correct.
So it's not a guarantee that they only get 2 calls a year before you cite them?
Not a guarantee that it'd be just a minimum of 2
Right,
calls.
right.
No, this would be far more than 2 calls.
Okay,
Far more.
all right. I just wanted to make sure we were clear on that. Okay.
Councilwoman?
Yes, I know we were emailed a lot of articles from Councilwoman Walsh, and the majority of them had to do with the person calling 911 as being the nuisance, and I don't think that's what this nuisance law is about. What she was bringing up is every time someone called, that they would be what do I want to say?
Targeted?
Yes, and it's this is not what this is. This is not punishing the 911 caller. This is an aid to help our residents, our long-term, long-standing homeowners that are being bothered by neighbors that are renting their homes, or it doesn't have to be renters, but just it just helps you and helps them to bring peace to their neighborhoods with the loud music and the vulgar language and the fireworks going off in the summer. It's really, and it's like I say, it's basically, I know it's my ward that we're having trouble with. So, so I don't think it's not targeting the 911 callers. It's targeting we're calling 911 regarding the nuisance, and that's what this is about.
You're
Right.
absolutely right. Yes. And how this came up recently was the Brandywine issue, but this can be used for businesses as well, like we discussed at the last council session.
Right.
But you're right, it is not intended for
Right,
someone
and-
that's calling the police department. They're not a nuisance, they need help.
And I think that was the majority, if I'm correct, if you've read the emails that she sent, they were targeting the 911 caller for calling so many times, and that's not what this is about.
No,
Okay.
Not what this is about. I want to be crystal clear.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And also the information we received, domestic violence doesn't fall under our nuisance ordinance at all.
Right. Yeah, I think we covered that pretty clearly at the last council session, that if you're a victim of domestic violence and are concerned of calling the police and being deemed a nuisance, that is not the case. I mean, we are, of course, sympathetic to victims, and that we made sure to incorporate that language into our nuisance abatement ordinance.
Are there any other questions or comments from council? Is
Madam
there,
President.
Councilman?
Chief, just to be clear, and I also read the articles that Councilwoman Walsh forwarded to us, and there were two things that kind of stood out to me, what Councilman Danzig just shared, and also potentially some of the trouble that the city got into legally when things were hashed out and, pushbacks. So I want to, a couple things. I want to make sure that this is written in such a way that the city is not compromising themselves and possibly walking into litigation. I definitely wanted to provide residents peace and, serenity in their backyards and in their neighborhoods. And I want to give the police the tools that they need to help our city be safe. I feel better knowing that it's targeted potentially with repeat offenders. It's not your first time to a neighborhood or your first time to a house, or it's the frequent the frequent calls, the frequent drive-bys, the frequent neighborhood issues that this is really intended to target. But my only concern on top of all that is that this ordinance will most likely outlive all of us, or will be repealed or amended or whatever. But I want to have, with confidence, something in my heart that says that if it's not you and it's somebody else, or if it's not us and it's somebody else, that the intent of this is held to be true, so that some of those scenarios that were shared in those articles are not what our city becomes. You know what I'm saying?
Can I address that? Some of these examples that were used in here, these cities should have been sued. And whoever follows after me, whoever follows after everybody on council, I would, and whoever follows the chief when that time comes, I would assume, and I know what happens when you assume, that the intent with some of these other cities had gone through, it was a learning experience for us, and we will not, there's no intent. Some of these were just, the chief and I had a discussion today, there should have been retribution taken to those cities. And I can assure you, Councilman, that as long as I'm here, that the process, once this ordinance is placed into effect, no one's going to quickly gotcha type of attitude. It's something that I've seen the chief do already, that there's a process in place, doesn't overreact, doesn't quickly react. There are a couple of things, though, that we would like to make some tweaks to, I would say.
Right.
One is the appeal process. We're going back and forth. Mr. Schneider started to do some review today. In the ordinance, it says the Board of Zoning Appeal. We're not quite sure if maybe another appeal board should be in place, that there should be other members of the administration on that, and from the law department, definitely the police department. So there's, as you see the ordinance now, it's probably 95%, but there's tweaks to that, and then we need to be a little bit more, not a little bit, we need to be more specific with what the fine would be. But I assure you, during all of our discussions, what came out with some of the information that was forwarded to us was very concerning.
Yeah, I read some of that and I would be embarrassed for those cities. I don't know if it was some clerk that looked at a weekend and saw 2 calls to that residence and deemed that a nuisance, but that is clearly not the spirit of what this language is to be. And I can tell you, speaking to my staff, my successor would not just act on a nuisance abatement. That's not the case. And I think BZA fits. We're dealing with housing and commercial licensing, but we certainly want to make sure there's a good appeal process. And outside of BZA at Parma Police Court, we had a good conversation about that today. And I want to be clear on the penalty as well. We talked about man hours and calculations. I'd rather not get into that, having reviewed this. I'd like to get some set amounts and be clear on the penalties as well. So something that we've had a lot of discussion about as a city. I want to make sure that we're very satisfied and feel good about this, all the language in this.
And I appreciate your comment in particular that it's not to hurt the victims. You know, it's not meant to penalize people that are just trying to be peaceful. But in the event that there is a family that's in crisis, I would hope that we turn into helpers rather than, you know, hurters,
Well,
so to speak.
there's no question. There was several examples where I wouldn't even think nuisance abatement. We're there, that's not a controlled action, that's an uncontrolled action.
Mhm.
And we would want to help that family get the resources they need. That's not nuisance abatement.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman.
Are there any other questions or concerns from council? Mayor? Anything else?
For the Madam
Okay.
President.
Chief?
I just wanted to add, I handed out the annual report. I just got that today. Sergeant Lesniak does a great job with that. It's 33 pages. It's becoming, well, it's a small book. I have not digested that myself, but I would like you to please thoroughly read that over. I mean, that's our product, a product I'm proud of, and if you have any questions, please let me know, but I'll probably be returning to address questions and go over it more thoroughly.
The council just let me know whether the 14th or the 28th, whichever meeting you'd like, the chief will be back to address it in depth.
Council have a preference for the chief to come on the evening of the 14th or the 28th?
14th is good
14th?
for me.
Does that work for you, chief?
It does.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm. And then we'll move on to our second item on the agenda, pandemic mandates on the state and federal level.
Thank you, Chief.
There are some changes that are being made to federal and state mandates regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, regarding masks, things like that. Council has had discussions regarding streaming our meetings, remote meetings. So going forward, June 2nd seems to be the date where the state will be lessening some of the restrictions, especially for vaccinated people. Right now, there is a bill before Ohio Congress regarding an extension to allow public bodies to have remote meetings through the end of the year. So I want to open up the discussion to all of council to get your input on how you feel about moving forward, whether we should still stream our meetings. We are going to be bringing on a clerk who has the capability of doing remote meetings. So I would like to, like I said, get everyone's input and discuss how we move going forward.
I have a question regarding this June 2nd date, and maybe Mr. Mayor, after that date will City Hall be once again open to the public? Are we opening City Hall and for residents to come in? I mean, and if that's the case, then I don't see why we wouldn't have an open meeting instead of doing it by Zoom or whatever we decide to do, but.
City Hall's always been open. You know, we
Okay.
tweaked our hours there for a while, but City Hall's always been open, Monday through Friday. We've made a few changes. It impacted mostly the service department, where somebody comes in for a permit. A member of the service department goes down and meets them either in the lobby or in the vestibule there. We've limited their access to the entire building. The same thing with the clerk of court's office. Once they come into the building, we find out what they want to do, and Nora's window is always open. They can come in and make payment, or if they have questions, to talk to her. And then everybody else is kind of on a scheduled basis. If someone's coming in to meet with me or meet with any of the directors or so forth, that's usually scheduled. The council meeting, as far as City Hall is concerned, after talking to Law Director Percorni, I'd like to move slowly. I know that June 2nd is the date, but I also realize that there's options available, just like with the businesses and so forth. So whatever is implemented really before your council meeting on the 14th, the first day that we're going to implement any changes would be June 7th to the Planning Commission. So I would like your input, see what you think. What I would like to do is still request masks to be worn by people who come into the building or come to a meeting. I still would encourage distancing. However, if it's family members and they want to sit next to each other, that's fine. What I'd like to do is, after the planning meeting on the 7th and council meeting on the 14th, maybe take a step back and review the process of what we have in place, and see if we need to make any changes at that time.
Councilwoman?
Now, would the theater be an option to open, for open meetings, that council could be on stage, because we could still social distance there? The theater's big enough that they can social distance, you could still wear the masks. We can open it then to the public, and we don't need to record, which I think is one of the biggest sticking points now, is the cost. I mean, I think that would be an option.
I don't think, at this point, with everything opening up, we should still come into chambers. We don't get that many people that attend our meetings. I would hate to move the venue.
I was just curious, maybe you know something I don't, and I was going to say that would be a lot of people attending there. I mean, even if we did a 6-foot distance, which is, we can fit quite a few people in.
Right.
The
Look, I'm
directors could
fine
be-
doing it here too,
Okay,
but
yeah.
if the concern was it's too small, or we only allow 10 or whatever, then,
Well,
I mean, and there's other meetings coming up where they have to be open to public meetings. So
Right.
that may be a better venue than here. It's just a suggestion.
Well, it is an option. That's why I thought we'd take a step back on the 7th or 14th, take a look and see. If need be, it's an option. Councilman Stavoli also threw out the option of not even the theater, but where we used to meet downstairs in the community rooms could be an option too. There's 2 doors in the one room that open to the outside that brings in fresh air. That's an option. So, I mean, I'm open to that. I think we get a better feel after the, especially after the 28th, the last meeting, you go on break for July and August. That gives us a little bit of time to take a look at what's really happening in the month of June. But no, I'm open and receptive, just like with everybody here at City Hall. There's been a comfort level. We do wear masks even now. We will probably continue to wear them. I would hope and think that at some time very soon, that will be the option of the individual, whether they'd like to wear it or not.
I think if we anticipate a large crowd, the theater may be an option. But if, once we start, we can meet in here, because we'll be closer
Right.
together, this will be freed up space. So, Councilman?
I think planning on the 7th is going to be the first meeting that we would have this. And just looking at what's coming up on the 7th, I would probably anticipate at least between all of the members of planning and the administration, and there's probably close to, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, it's probably close to 15 people just between attorneys and presenters. I mean, it would be my guess. I don't know what we would get in the way of the residents, how many would, but you're probably looking at 15, I would guess, anyway. So it might be a good test run on the 7th to see if we need to go to the theater or the downstairs or just continue on here. But I'm in agreement, if the people at City Hall that are working here every day, if they want me to wear a mask for a meeting, I'll wear a mask for a meeting. I don't have to like it, but I'll do it.
I appreciate that, yes. was going to comment on some of our ages here at City Hall, but I'm not going to.
No,
Since I'm a
but-
senior citizen,
My point was, I want residents to feel like they can come back in and.
well, I think that's a
watch
good
the
point.
meeting.
Not only those that are comfortable coming in, whether masked or unmasked, but those that are a little bit hesitant know that if they come in, that there's still going to be some
Right,
controls in place.
right, with the distancing and mask and everything.
Yeah, I agree.
And one more question, Mayor. If a resident comes in and doesn't have a mask, would we be able to provide them with a mask, so that they can come to the meeting?
Yeah, and we do that currently, but we would do that for the meetings too. We definitely make
Okay.
something available here or at the door, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That's all I have.
Does anyone else, Councilwoman Everett, did you have anything else?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any input or an opinion? Councilman Rounds?
Just real quick, the June 2nd or June 6th, the date that the governor has proposed is
Second.
the second,
Mhm.
is the flexibility with masks wearing, but the order about 10 people in a room it expires at the end of June unless it's renewed, is that correct? Or is that also impacted by the June 2nd date?
I think it goes to the end of the month.
Yeah,
The cessation of the government's order is, I think, separate from the emergency order that took place by for public meetings.
I can look into that, get you a specific answer. This is from April 5th. This was from the Ohio Department of Health on the 5th. So I don't know. Let me check into that, Councilman. I'm not quite sure. But I'm not saying that we have to measure off 6 feet. Do you know what I mean? It's something that people are comfortable with, as long as we're not shoulder to shoulder, I think. You try to achieve a comfort level for those that are attending as well as
Absolutely.
those that are.
Well, and I guess I was most interested in that number 10 in this room. We've done a really good job of honoring that number all year long, and when, we've had reports from other directors, they've rotated in and out to keep the number in here at 10. If we add residents, which I am in favor of, giving residents access to us and the opportunity to attend as much as we can, when we can, that number would obviously be impacted by that number 10, though, because we're already, in full attendance, we're at 10.
If we get, we've all been here, we don't get an exorbitant amount of residents attending. If for whatever reason that we do, I'm sure we could work our way through the meeting, but we could also continue to rotate the directors in on an as-needed basis.
Well, and there is enough space in between us for some chairs grouped potentially by families if they wanted to attend. I just wondered what the order was 10 in a room, I thought, so that's where I was.
I see Mark trying to check it out right now. It was, and I don't know how June 2nd impacts that order, so if he comes up with something, we'll let you know.
Anyone else on council have anything to add? So let's wait and see how the order or the
Well-
enforcement of the 10, I believe it's going away, but
We'll look, but June 7th, the planning is definitely, will be the first time that we open up to a large amount of participants, followed by the 14th. Then I thought, however, Madam President, you'd like to handle it, either council as a whole, council leadership, or whatever, we take a step back and review. Councilman Stivoli sits on the planning commission. He'll be at both meetings. Take another look at how those 2 meetings went, see what we want to do moving forward. And then we've got somewhat of a recess. I'm sure there'll be some special meetings scheduled, but we've got some time to discuss it a little bit further at that time.
so if it's our understanding, if it's in fact that the 10-person limit goes away, what would council like to do? So the planning commission, you're already planning on coming in session, so is council okay with coming in session for our first meeting in June?
I am.
I am.
Okay, and then masks will be required, and because it's open, there would be no need to record it and live stream. The residents would be allowed to attend. Councilwoman?
10-person rule a health issue or a health order? Was that a health order?
Is an order by the state of Ohio.
Because if it was a health order, then it will come off on June 2nd.
That was my understanding, but
Yeah, that's what it,
yeah, we'll have the law department confirm it, but
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that is all lifted June 2nd.
okay.
Um,
You can let us know, for sure.
Our council clerk found somewhat of an update, but unfortunately, as we wandered through this challenge, there's nothing real specific in it, you know. Organizers and managers should conduct the event in a manner that discourages individuals that are not fully vaccinated from standing or sitting close in buildings. Well, I mean, we haven't discussed that, but I'm not comfortable asking someone if they're vaccinated or if they're not vaccinated, so that's, I mean.
No,
Okay.
I mean, I'm not going to speak for council, but no. Would anyone be in favor of that?
Oh.
Okay. Okay, just wanted to make sure.
And then, the last sentence, where possible, the organizers and managers should provide one-way traffic in buildings or other areas where doing so will help people maintain social distancing. So they still mention the social distancing in that part, but
Which we could do.
with this, we could do the
Yeah.
one way in, one way out.
Yeah, just go right out there if you need to, yeah, I think that'll work.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll wait to get an answer from the law department, and then if in fact the mandate or the rule for the 10-person requirement for meetings goes away, then let's plan on meeting in person for planning and for our first council meeting in June.
I did have one question
Councilman.
for Mr. Snyder. Do we have to the city have to make any notification to the people that are planning on being on the agenda for June 7th, that it is open, and do we do some sort of email to them, or, and I don't know if you've already done that, or if that's something that we should do to let the public know? Do we post that? And I'm just asking.
Ms. Bowden isn't here, who's obviously the secretary for the Planning Commission, but I believe for any hearing with the public, we have the agenda and notice posted on the city's website, as well as any other required locations.
Right.
In addition, I believe the city's access to City Hall is also posted on the city's website. So
Okay.
should there be changes prior to that June 7th meeting, my assumption, and we'll follow through with that, would be that any changes from the status quo would also be publicly available in the same manner.
Okay.
I don't know that we send out any, Facebook posts or something like that
Right.
specifically to individuals planning on attending, but we do make the schedule, the notice, as well as the City Hall policy available on the city's public forums.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments regarding the COVID-19 mandates? And then just one last note, we will be getting, Councilman Stavoli and I will be in touch with Mr. Picorni when he gets back, and there will be some special meetings coming up over our summer recess, and we're looking to schedule one sooner than later. So as soon as Mr. Picorni gets back, we will talk to him, and then we'll start to coordinate dates and times for those special meetings, okay? And then with nothing further, the council work session of Monday, May 24th, 2021 is adjourned at 7:00 p.m.